everybody, welcome back to The Hobby Musician. Today I want to bring you a really quick tip on how you can fix or find and fix very localized areas where your frets might be buzzing. Now, we're not talking about doing an entire batch leveling of all the frets all at once. No. We've got videos to show you how to do that. But this is more for the cases where either you've had a guitar that you've played for years and it's been fine, but maybe over time with playing, hours and hours of playing, frets can wear away slowly, and sometimes they don't wear away evenly, causing some to be a little higher and fret buzz might start to come into it. Or in my case today, I'm actually in the process of assembling a kit. And what I do is the kit, I always double check my kits when they arrive. And all of these frets are always really well leveled at the factory before, but the reason I double check them is that the second main cause of localized frets kind of being higher or lower is actually temperature differences, being exposed to really hot temperatures and then back to cold, or vice versa. And when I, get kits delivered, they're gonna spend time out on the road in delivery trucks. As I'm filming this, I'm on the East Coast and we're right in the middle of summer. So at some point when this kit was coming to me, it was sitting on a really hot truck, and I don't know for how long. So what I do in my double check is I go through and I do everything I can to make the necks as flat as possible, and then see if there's any localized frets that I need to work on, because maybe the wood or the metal expanded or shrunk a little bit, just due to being on a hot or cold truck. Now, I keep talking about kits because if you're watching this, you found our sub-series where we've partnered with the good folks over at Pango Music to bring you the best tips, tricks, and just general advice for assembling kits. And if you're interested in that, or you see something today that you want to check out for yourself, they've done two great things. They've made a channel-specific link that I put below this video, description and comments section, that will take you to their website where you can browse all their kits. And if you find one you like, the second thing they've done for us is they've created a limited time discount code. So if you find the kit, use the code Jeremy10, all one word, Jeremy10 at checkout, and they'll throw in a bonus 10% off your entire purchase. Now, don't forget, the links to get to their site will always work, but those discount codes are limited to the first 100 customers, so don't wait too long to do your shopping. Well, now getting back to this, so what do we do, or how do I go through and find this? Well, in my case, I had to do some straightening of the neck first. So I took the Allen wrench that came with this to make adjustments to the truss rod. Now, the truss rod is what's kind of mounted underneath the fretboard, and it can actually introduce or adjust curvature of the neck. Well, if I'm trying to check for things to be level, what I did was I took the Allen wrench and I made adjustments back and forth until I checked the neck to make sure that the wood was entirely level. Now, what I do with that, or how I accomplish that, is I use a notched straight edge. So on the absolute edges of this tool, these have been machined so that they're perfectly flat, but they've also introduced notches so that this can miss the frets and I can actually push all of this straight edge right up to the wood. So they make them, and there's different scales, for different fret placement. So I got to remember which one is the right one. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one over here. So just to show you what that is now I can place this and you can see it completely misses, it's the correct scale. It misses all the frets, and now that straight edge can tell me if the wood is flat. An easy tip, or the way that I always do this, I've got a light like directly above me, and whenever I'm checking these things, I actually hold it up to the light. Sometimes if you're looking down like this, you may not know if they're touching because there could be shadows or stuff, but hold it up to the light, and it's much easier that if it's not level, you actually see light shining underneath them. And so you can make your adjustments, and that's what I did. I adjusted it back and forth until I put this up, and right now, if I hold this up to the light, I can't see. There's no section where I can see light. So that tells me that the wood is flat. Well, now if we think about the frets above that, if the wood is flat, I want the frets to be flat. So that's where I switched over to just a regular straight edge, no notches, And I went all over this neck and I checked all the different areas. I checked them in chunks and sections. Again, as I said, just a double check to make sure that this is good to go for the assembly process. And the good news is they do a great job at the manufacturing place to make sure that these are all level. The one thing that I noticed is I switched over to a more localized tool and I found a single fret that needs a little bit of attention. Now I want to talk about these before we go any further. But I'll also mention, in videos where I kind of talk through lots of different tools that I use, I know that it can be confusing and overwhelming. So just to make it easier, if you are listening to this and this is a project you want to do yourself, I've also created just a generic Amazon affiliate link list of every single item that I'm talking about. So you can quickly click in there, check it out for yourself too. Well, these two look an awful lot like each other, and it's because they have some similar design elements. I'll start with this one. This is just a generic, what we call a fret rocker, and it is this weird shape for a reason. It is designed to span or cover exactly 3 frets at one time. So if you put it onto 3 frets, if you're up here in the top of the neck, the frets are far apart, so you want to use this long. But as you start to move during the neck, the frets kind of change their spacing. So then you can kind of change to a different. So if I'm like in here, I'm going to use this shorter thing just so that I'm only touching 3 frets and I'm not touching 4 or 5. And then if you get way up here, it has a tiny, tiny side just to hit like 3 of the frets that are really close together. But what this does, the reason it's called a rocker is because when you put it on 3 frets, just physically speaking, it is a straight side that is now only touching 3 points. If those 3 points are perfectly flat with relation to each other, I can press down on either side and there's no way that it can do like a seesaw or a rocking. You can't seesaw if all 3 things are flat. But if one object is higher than something else, when I get to that, then I can press down and it will actually start to rock a little bit. I'm not talking crazy. I'm talking just a little bit and it'll start clicking, click, click, click when we rock back and forth. And it helps us identify localized areas. So what did I find with this neck? Well, as I said, I went through and checked. Everything is fine, except I did discover one thing. If I go to fret number 4 right here, I was checking it, and what I do is I actually check kind of the whole length of the frets. So I put it right in the middle of the neck, and I press down on either side, nothing. I go over to the edge closer to you, on the outside here, pressing down, nothing. But now watch and listen. When I get closer to the inside, so this other edge, I'm pressing, side, click, 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 click. You can hear it. But if I slide back to the middle, I'm pressing and there's no sound because it's level in the middle. But if I get out to this close edge, right out to the edge, there it is. So in here, nothing. Out here, click, 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 click. That means that just the outside edge of fret number 4 is a little higher than fret 5 or fret 3, and so it's able to kind of click like this. Well, again, this is classic case of just a temperature situation. This is not, everything else is level, so that means the machining process is fine. This just means that when it was sitting on a hot truck, everything kind of expanded and shrunk, and then just this one thing didn't go back exactly the same as everything else. So how do we fix this? Well, the easy way is we switch over to this other version. Now this is a fret rocker, and then they call these fret kissers. I didn't come up with the name, but it's supposed to just kiss one fret and leave the other frets alone. But the difference here, the design difference is this still has all of the same lengths, but in the middle of each of these sides is a grinding filing area where the edges are still smooth and flat. So they've also machined it so that the level of the surface and the surface in the middle are perfectly in line with each other. So If you find an area where the middle thing is higher, right, it's rocking back and forth, by having a grinding file, I can then slide back and forth. And if I slide towards the middle, like we saw here, the middle is level. So if I'm sliding back and forth, and actually I'll go to, okay, fret 4 right here. If I go to the middle, you hear sliding. That's just the sound of metal sliding on metal. But if I start to slide to the edge, it's subtle, but it gets hard to slide, and the sound changes. And actually I can go a little bit back and forth. You can kind of hear grinding. But if I go back to the middle and go back and forth, sliding. Out to the edge, grinding. Because by having this, and I'm gonna do this while I kind of explain. By having this middle area with a file, it can just gently grind away or sand away only the higher areas, leaving everything else in line with itself. It does not take it doesn't take a long time to do this. And what you're going to see is the way that I do it is like here, nothing. And then you can really find all of a sudden it starts grabbing. It starts grabbing when you get to the high place. You can do a little bit back and forth, just as long as you don't kind of bump over, other frets. Or you can go side to side. But in either case, you're only ever going to be sanding or grinding down the high middle part while leaving everything else the same. So I just keep going, and actually right now the grinding is getting less. The feeling in your fingers starts to get less when you've ground away, the high part. Also visually, I can look down on here, and it's impossible to see on camera, but you can see that the shine of all of the frets in the middle, the shine, and then right at the edge, there's like a 1/4 inch where you can start to see some grinding showing up. But then, honestly, just with that bit, just a little bit like that. Now, if I go back with the fret rocker, so I'm going to start in the middle. Again, I'm trying side to side. Now what you hear, I'm going so hard the table's shaking back and forth. That's the creak. So nothing there. And then if I get out to the edge, side, nothing. It's back to flat. So we started with a little click, and just with that little bit of grinding, it is maybe a 1/4 inch where I can see some of the like tool marks in this fret, where then it just sort of tapers and disappears back into a shiny fret. That is as easy as it is to locally and just do a minor fix to a fret that's a little higher, or and I say lower. Well, if a fret's lower, you don't grind that one. You grind the high one that's next to it. But then the last thing that I'll talk about is an optional step. And the reason I think it's optional is because sometimes the fixes are so minor that in the realm of playing, like there's no way, it's going to be very difficult for me or anyone to ever see this. So there's no need for me to necessarily get it back to a high polished shine. But if you're in a situation where maybe a bigger portion of the fret needed to be grinded down, maybe you do want to get it polished back. So I do recommend these. These are just triple grit emery boards. They're like made for like models, like you build little model kits and stuff, like little cars and planes and stuff. But they work wonders on the fret work of any building project you're doing. And what you can do with these is they have sort of a medium grit, fine grit, and then an ultra fine grit on the back. And if you want to kind of polish back up a fret that you had to grind away a little bit, you start and you go progressively. Just polish a little bit with the medium grit, and then you'll start to see those tool marks get less. Then switch over to the next one down. Polish a little more, the tool marks are even less. And then finally you can get a full shine back on that fret by kind of polishing it down with the third and final grit on that. But here at the end, that is as easy as it can be to help fix a minor localized fret buzz due to just a tiny little bit of unlevelness in your frets. Well, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and until next time, play on, my friends, play on.